Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Dear brothers, sisters and friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In 1992, I stood in a queue at Waterstone's, I think no, Dillon's bookstore, in the rain for almost 2 hours to meet a man who has had a profound effect on my life and I think on the lives of everybody that I can think of. And that man's name was Muammad Ali. I was young at the time. I won't even consider myself a practicing Muslim, but I knew that this individual had taken on the world and defeated it. And what happened that day has stuck with me for many, many years, up until just now recently. I stood in the rain, I bought a copy of his autobiography, and then got him to sign it. And he was suffering from Parkinson's at that time, and he was no longer the Louisville lip that he used to be, fast with his mouth, just as he was with his fists. But I shook his hand, and I said, "You're the champ." And he turned around and looked at somebody and said, "Did he just call me a tramp?" And I was mortified. I didn't know what to do, what to say. And then he smiled. He smiled. And that melted my heart. And you remember the Prophet ﷺ said, "At-tabassum fi wajhi akhiqa sadaqah." That smiling in the face of your brother is a charity. And what a noble charity that was. For me, when he recently died, I immediately returned to that photograph, that single photograph I have with that man. Yes, he's a towering man compared to me. I'm short. But what a smile, what an effect of this person. And everybody's been talking about him. We've been talking about the issue of unity. We've been talking about the issue of Muslims' contribution to world civilization. And how that doesn't seem to permeate society today. Yet it is this man, with this name, with probably the two most well-known Islamic names in the world, not just Muhammad but Ali, too. To enforce, to reinforce that this is his identity. And that's precisely what he did when he fought Ernie Terrell, who refused to call him Muhammad Ali. Not out of anything except for him to say that in the ring, I'm going to punch you until you tell me you accept my name. And he kept on hitting him. What's my name? What's my name? What's my name? And that name, out of all the names on the walk, the Hollywood Walk of Fame, out of 2,500 names of the most famous people on the planet, there is only one name that isn't on the floor in cement. And that name is Muhammad Ali. And there's one reason why that name is there. And he said it himself, that the name of our beloved messenger, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, is too beloved to me for it to be put on the ground for people to trample over it. And that still to this day remains there in the heart of Hollywood, where you would least expect such a name to be praised. And after all, Muhammad is the praiseworthy, the one who is praised. If that alone wasn't enough of a story about taking on the odds, defeating them, and rising up above them, then think about just his worldly efforts within sport. He fights, he wins. As an 18-year-old, he wins the Olympic title, then he wins the world title, and he's the underdog. My father tells me, when I was speaking at home to him, and my father's an old man now, but he says that when I was a youth in Pakistan, I'd stay awake all night just to watch the Sonny Liston fight. And up until the time that he won, we used to call Muhammad Ali the maskhara, the jokey kind of guy. He's not serious. But when he won the title, and when he did it, and announced that he is a Muslim, even if it was one from the Nation of Islam, we all stood up. He was our pride. He was our joy. He was our honor. He brought back to us people who had been ruled under colonialization all over the world, that there is a way to stand up, to be who you want to be, without conforming. And Muhammad Ali writes, or says in some interview, that when I was getting ready for the fight, for the title fight with Sonny Liston, who was at that time equivalent of Mike Tyson, a beast in the ring, that Malcolm X said to me that you are like David and he's like Goliath, and you will win because time is on your side and Allah is on your side. And he did. But that was just the beginning of the story. That was just the beginning of the story. Because not only did he win then, he won the hearts of people. And when the Vietnam War was declared, or undeclared rather, he was called for the draft. And they wanted him to come and join the army. And he famously made that statement and said that no Vietnamese ever called me a nigger. Why should I go to that place when in my homeland I'm not free? And that's the stance he took. He took it at a time when it was unpopular, not after the protests that were all around America, but he did it way before the protests. And he did it for one reason. He said that war is against the teaching of the Holy Quran. And what he meant was this war. I'm not trying to dodge the draft. We are not supposed to, we Muslims are not supposed to take part in any wars unless declared by Allah and His Messenger. He said that, such a bold statement at that time. He stood up clearly for his faith and was unrepentant about it till the last moment. They took his title from him. He was sentenced to prison, and that was overturned, but he was ready to go to prison. And doesn't that remind you of the words of Yusuf alayhi salam when he said, Rabbi sijnu ahabbu ilayya mimma yad'unani ilay. O Lord, prison is more beloved to me than that which they call me to. They stripped him of his title, they took his passport away. Something that's happened to me twice in 10 years. I didn't have a boxing title, I mean the passport. And then he wasn't allowed to box. They made his life miserable. He couldn't earn. His whole world had turned upside down, from victory to right to the bottom. And eventually, the Supreme Court in America overturned the case with language which is shocking, because it recognizes, according to his belief, the court said that his belief in the concept of Islamic jihad, it quoted, was one that needed to be respected, because that is why he refuses to fight. Imagine if you did that today, you'd be in prison without a thought. And so, again, he fought back again. He came back and he regained the title after the rumble in the jungle. And his name became synonymous with not just the victory in the ring, but the victory outside the ring in the Supreme Court and beyond, and then the greatest victory in the hearts of people. From Kinshasa to Manila to Sao Paulo to Tokyo, Paris, New York, London, Karachi, wherever you go, every village you go to, the most well-known, most famous, most loved man on the planet, and I mean amongst Muslims and non-Muslims, is a man called Muhammad Ali. And nobody will be ever be able to take that away from him or from the Muslim community to whom he gave his allegiance to. And he rose above every attack that was given to the Muslims, past and present. And although his death came recently, the genius of a man was this, that he'd prepared and planned for his funeral ceremony, and he'd picked certain people to come and speak at that ceremony that included Malcolm X's daughter. It included Native Americans who came along on the stage to say, we understood brother Muhammad Ali because we've been doing survival training for 500 years. And then he chose a rabbi of all people, somebody who'd been imprisoned alongside him back in the 60s, who hadn't really seen him at all since that time, but he chose him to speak. And what words did he say? This rabbi said that today we, the Jewish community, stand in solidarity with the Islamic community in this country and around the world, and we will not tolerate politicians putting down Muslims and blaming Muslims. We know what it's like to be demeaned. He also said that we must speak out and refuse to follow the path of conformity. We must talk truth to power whenever and however it's possible. And we must tell Israel to stop the occupation of the West Bank. And then he finished. And he said, and peace be on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you see, dear brothers and sisters, you want to know a story of David and Goliath for today? I can't think of a greater one. I can't think of a greater one at this time when Muslims are being vilified across the world. But there's, like Gareth said, even sitting amongst us, we have our own Davids. We have numerous Davids. We have the David generation that will grow up watching our desire and our ability to defend those that have been oppressed. And then we watch people like Babar Ahmed and Shakir Amr and many others who are here right now today, who are our own Davids. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of them, inshallah, and accept all our du'as and fasting in this blessed month of Ramadan, and for all of you attending, barakallahu fikum.